Hello, hello, hello. This is Diane, and I'm doing this on my Wisdom of the Akashic page, which I don't think I've ever done this before. But I'm going to be passing on a message for twin flames, and I'm awake in my home in what would be like the middle of the night in Canada, and we're in the energy of the full moon. And I haven't spoken live or spoken about twin flames actually at all, very much lately, and for about a year actually, until a very recent video. But I know that if anyone does come on here tonight or listens to this, then this will matter to them, because those elements would have happened. So I really wish that I knew if this could be heard. Where's my thing with Monique? Is anyone live with me? I wonder if I have it set up for comments. Anyways, I think I'm just going to start talking. In the channel that my YouTube channel that I used to have a lot of videos on, I always did the videos on my own, in my home privately, and then I uploaded them. So I didn't have a live audience, and I may not have a live one tonight here or not. I don't know, because the fact it's 2 o'clock in the morning in Canada. So whatever other parts of the world that potentially may end up listening to this. I think the word is dichotomy, and I might have that wrong, but there's a dichotomy, which what it is that I'm getting is there's the difference that's affecting twin soul relationships and twin flame relationships on the earth right now so deeply, is that they're either being held in the energy of a fantasy, or they're being held in the energy of a reality. And what they need is a lot more people and a lot more twins to step into the energy of the reality and get out of the energy of the fantasy. The fantasy is the fantasy of your twin flame. That will mean something different to everyone, but it'll be something specific to you, because you will have a pattern. You will always be responding in a certain way in certain things. The reality of a twin relationship is there is a vibrational match to your soul. There's a yin to your yang. There's a bread to your butter. And when you have that match, you've chosen to incarnate at the same time. And twin flames are here for a purpose right now, and then would be choosing to incarnate at the same time. When you actually go into the energy of that incarnation, in the energy of the twin love, that relationship will challenge you to the absolute maximum in many ways, because it will ask you to surrender to full faith and trust in the existence of that perfection of the other half of your soul. And it literally is like the energies of yin and yang. But because we are conscious beings and we are individual souls, the blending of the twin flames right now on Earth, there's so much third dimensional energy going on the Earth right now, which is lowered energy. The twin flames are mired in it also, and they need to step out of it. If you truly chose to have a twin flame relationship on the Earth right now, during this time in the universe and in the history, the story, if you believe in twin flames, you probably believe that you have other souls and have had other lifetimes and reincarnation and such like that also. That would be very common belief inside twin flames, because you know that you're together. You're the match. You meet to have the highest story of love to come forward for you. But if you're stuck in the third dimensional stuff, and everybody got stuck in stuff, and stuff shows up like obsession and addiction and incorrect relationships and karma and somebody getting sidetracked early in life, because what happens, you choose to incarnate with your twin flame, with a path that you come here to try to meet one another and then enter the energy of love. And if you meet one another and enter the energy of love, that will be the story going forward. That twin flame relationship will blossom and grow in this lifetime. If you meet at a time where you end up not being in alignment because you took trajectory changes and you did other things, or you stayed in relationships, or you did something, you're staying somewhere where your heart no longer wants to be, that has a huge impact on your soul. I need to go and check something. And I don't want to stop talking because I'm channeling. I need to check it. Oh, for Lord's sake. Sorry, you guys. I don't think anybody's on live with me right now. Anyways, now I've made a long pause, so that's probably like silly that I'm even trying to do this. Anyways, I just feel like I want to keep talking because this will be important to be heard. I did actually get cards that I was drawn to ask before I did this. I wasn't even sure if I could actually come and do this live. I've never done this live, and it's late at night, and maybe there is nobody live, but that's okay. Because I've had some really impactful things happen to me, and I've had really impactful things happen to me in the last year, and then also in the very last short amount of time, where I've even revisited this in a way of doing anything. Readings are live. And the one thing I can tell you is that if you are here to be a vibrational match with somebody and you found them and you're in union, then your experience is going to be that. If you found each other and you're both in disunion with at the time, and you're with the wrong, you're in the wrong unions, that has a consequence and an outcome when you meet at this time in your life. So it matters. It matters if you are meeting, what happens when you meet. It doesn't mean your souls aren't meant to match. It doesn't mean that you can't get beyond the things that are keeping the souls apart. But when people get mired in fear and in the third dimension, and we do all of this stuff and we stay really stuck and we operate out of fear and we live out of obligation and we stay for all the wrong reasons, when all of that starts to add up in a soul, the soul will feel, your soul is now unhappy. Your human experience is you're not happy, and your soul is starting to long for that difference. And some people literally do need to leave the relationships they're in to find that difference and to be willing to receive that difference. And so if you know in your heart your relationship's been over for a really long time, I could tell you your soul will suffer day by day by day more by the fact that you're not doing anything about it. And I don't believe in suffering. I believe in letting your soul find its way to heal itself through a situation that may just be complete for you. Things don't have to be horrible and bad all the time. If people would just realistically say, you know, we've just done our time together. We had our kids together. Let's just be adults, though. Our relationship isn't a relationship of love. And that's actually their karmic relationships, and twins are really in them right now, and male twins are in them more. Male twins are going through a very difficult time right now. The masculine is going through a difficult time right now. We think the feminine, the feminine are being, where the wounding is taking place on the earth right now, but it's so much bigger than that. And the masculine is very wounded right now, and they want to actually heal too. And we need to help them do that. And in order to help them do that, we need to come from a place of compassion, not anger, blame, and shame. And that just perpetuates the problem we're already in. I have to turn my heat in my fireplace off. So, but if you feel like your heart is actually truly at peace with loving somebody, don't take that feeling away for other people. Whether something comes to fruition is one part of the story. Feeling true love for somebody is a completely different part of the story. You don't want to deny if you feel true love for somebody. And if it's true love, it means it comes from the heart and the soul, and it's acceptance of that person in a way that you know they change your heart and you're willing to admit it. Because lots of times people show up to help us change our heart and we go into fear and don't let them in. But if you've chosen to incarnate at this time and you're on the earth in this date, being no time and space but a linear date, when you're here right now, and if you've chosen to be here, there's a higher story for you to know that you've come to earth and you've allowed yourself to find true, full, deep love for somebody that you are willing to understand that you may or may not ever be with them, but you will still love them just as deeply. That's what the twins have to do. They're here to heal the hearts. They're here to come together to assist the energy of unconditional love. Like, who better to bring unconditional love to the earth? Twins are inherent in it. They have unconditional love for each other. You are the yin yang. You are yin yang to the masculine feminine version of your twin. It doesn't mean that there's so many different versions of what people would start defining as what they think twin souls are. And of course, what I've been shown and what I've been taught and what I've been given, but it's the energy, the way they show it to me. It's just the birth of them. What makes the perfect balance of who all of us is the balance of masculine and feminine within us. And we will have an inherent masculine or feminine within us. And we certainly will in this lifetime. It could be very specific to this lifetime too, though. But you'll have it's the natural version of the masculine of energy of you. If you believe that you're birthed into the universe as a energy of the masculine and the feminine combined, because that's what makes everything beautiful. When women stand in their power and their truth more, and then men bring their hearts forward more, that changes so much. But if we come running out of the gate at each other, and we're always mad at each other, and everybody's screaming and yelling at each other and hates each other, and men are doing this and women are doing this, there's no solution-oriented things happening in any of that. And if twins get caught up in it, they just spiral down, because they're actually struggling because they are truly in love, and they're letting a lot of other things interfere. I need to take a drink. The cards that that came out was give your relationship a chance, and I'm pretty sure this card has been pulled a couple times in a row now, and I only started pulling cards again a little while ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and on a heart-to-heart conversation. And as soon as I flipped this card, this is what the heart-to-heart conversation was. I was hesitant. I wasn't going to go on live. I've never done that. I don't want to get running off. When I start talking and I start hearing things, I can start, when they're coming through to me, sometimes I'll get confused because I can be hearing and seeing things at the same time. But I did want to pull cards because in my own heart I had this question, But I asked the question for Source to tell us what is the message that they want to impart to somebody who is looking at maybe owning and taking accountability, or that's not the right word. There's another word, but taking, standing in the truth of saying, I am literally just deeply in love with one person on the earth more than anyone else. And if you've had that experience, it can make the rest of your life difficult, because it's difficult because it's like it's very difficult for that energy to show up in someone else. And it's not to say that there's not people on the earth for you still, or that you can't have other relationships. But when twins meet and that match takes place and the energy vibration comes together like that, nothing else really can match it. That's the point. That's kind of the point, actually. That's really the point. And so it's not an easy journey. So if, it's not something that you aspire to do for the sake of the fantasy. If you're here and you want to look at yourself and question in your soul, deep within your soul, are you somebody that's here to bring twin energy to the earth, meaning you come to have at least unconditional love with one person? And it's not unconditional love is not actually a great human trait. We can think we unconditionally love, but in truth, it isn't. And you can unconditionally love certain things way deeper than other things, your children, for example. But it's not human nature really to unconditionally love. So that's why you'll know it's different. Your lights will turn on as soon as you see each other. The exchange of energy when twins will first see each other first time will often be extremely powerful. It's like love at first sight on steroids, and then you'll both have had the same experience. Very, 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 very possibly. So you both entered into the same space and the same, table across the chair across the table that you're sitting at, in the bar that you've maybe just met them in, or the place that you're at when you're standing in front of each other for the first time, and that something will happen to you. Your life changes forever. And it's because the remembrance is so strong. It's so interesting what's happening to that light back there. Why is it doing that? Well, it must be just the reflection. That's Kuan Yin, actually. She's lit up back there. So if you are asking yourself, if you're on a twin journey, you got to start asking yourself questions that really don't belong in the third dimension. You know, you have to ask your question from a soul. Is this a person that changes my heart in some way? Is this a person that literally drives me to want to be the best version of myself I can possibly be? Could I really feel this deeply about someone? The telepathy will be really strong. There's all sorts of things that happen to twins. And then, of course, your souls, or whatever your journeys are up till now, I really like to get people to think about the fact that, in truth, even if you believe the twin soul was literally like your half in the literal sense that you just couldn't, some people don't really I'm trying to get a message out here. Some people don't, they have a perception of the twin soul that you're dead without your other half, almost like you could never be happy without them. And it's not correct information, because you both would have had separate incarnations over time. You both would have lived in different times. You both would have been on and off the earth together and apart, because you would also be overseeing the guidance of your twin when they choose incarnation, when you weren't incarnating together. And twins work energetically. They're from the higher dimension energy, I guess is the way they're showing it to me. And so what that means is that we do spend time where we're not incarnation, we're off the earth, but our twin could come for a lesson, and the other twin has lived completely different incarnations, so their soul story is actually completely different than yours. They might have lived completely different soul stories. You've both lived in different lifetimes, with different families, with different siblings, with different genealogies, with different history, with different pain, with different generational imprints. Like, is when you've been in and going in and out of incarnation, you're that our soul, twin or not, that person that's incarnating is having human experiences. So you do have separate issues. You have separate karmic things to clear up. Some people kind of live in this thought pattern that if you're twins, that you have to be a perfect match at everything. And it's like, you can't be a perfect match at anything, because your incarnations have been different. So if they had a trauma early in life that nobody was expecting, because that shit happens, you know, and it can change a soul. A soul can have a completely clear purpose for coming to the earth, and they can come solid and strong, and they can have, you know, something deeply painful happen to them as a small child, especially if it's horrible stuff, like what's going on the earth right now, those children, that trajectory that's completely different after you've traumatized that person, that soul like that. So their intent, their purpose, their lifetime experiences could end up completely different. And maybe people would agree or disagree with me on that one, thinking that everything happens for a reason. There's trajectory changes, and that's my belief system, and it's what I'm taught and shown. And it doesn't make sense to me that literally everything happens for a reason. If you end up in a family where somebody's off path, because most children, for example, totally different subject, but it's coming out to be said maybe, children that are suffering molestation, it's family members most often. And so if a family member comes to earth and they're effing off path because that's what they're doing, they're now going to impact another soul. Somebody can say they can agree to do that so those souls heal, because maybe something will come out of that story where there will be healing, but there's free will, and this is the human free will experience, and that person can completely get off path, and then their experience that they'll put forward will be can perpetuate off path. And that child and those people, their intention when they chose to incarnate was not to harm each other, or not to be harmed in that way. And so that can change an entire soul story. And so if twins come apart 10 years apart, what they thought might happen, or the place that the 10-year-old twin would have been, is could become very different than what their souls initially intended for itself. So but it's like they're asking you to be optimistic. They're asking you to have a heart-to-heart conversation, which they guided me that was going to be in this, why I was going to do this live, because I was really resistant to it. But the heart-to-heart conversation is start having a true heart-to-heart soul conversation with yourself, asking yourself, if I'm here and I'm here as a twin, and what is my belief as a twin? What do I think it's doing? How is it impacting me? How much time am I giving it? How much life force is it taking from me? How much life force is it giving me? And is there an energy of love that is underlying deep inside of it that's so intense and beautiful that it cannot be humanly explained almost, which is why when you can meet your twin, it will be very difficult for a long time potentially if you do go off path after you meet, because you will never, that moment in time can never be changed. It can't be taken away. And if you get to know them and you recognize it on that soul level where you actually, people come into, clear honesty that there's something that they have, and that soul is meant to be together. They're meant to be together. People sometimes have to make life changes for that to happen, and a lot of people around people aren't liking life changes in some ways, and we're really being asked not to have judgment on every people on the earth so heavily right now about the way that they exit, enter, and divorce relationships, because it's out of proportion. But people jump on one side of the ship, and if there's children in the middle of the ship, those people are causing that trajectory change that I just spoke about. They're causing a trajectory change because they immediately try to split the families up. The grandparents support the parent, who then says they can no longer speak about their father in front of them anymore. They speak poorly about the father. They speak poorly about the mother. They can only see one side of the grandparents anymore. If you want to be a kind soul, stop doing that to your children. And I will say this over and over again, and someday I feel like we could have a whole conversation around it. I'm a very strong believer, and based on my experience, everything that I've learned, seen, been through myself, and all of it, that when you speak to a child, they're so incredibly intelligent and smart, you're not getting anything past them anyways. They're actually being hurt by the relationship that's not healthy, that's staying together. There's a level of them that's actually getting quite hurt. They don't feel heard, and they don't want to be put in the middle of your drama because they just want to love their parents. And when their parents cause them to try to be separate from the other parent, and especially when they extend it out into the entire family. Now I'm totally going off twins here, because twins would desire at their deepest level to cause the least amount of impact, but be willing to follow your heart. You did choose in advance to follow your heart when you got here. Whether or not you're doing it is a completely different story, because the twins would agree in advance to come here and meet in union. And so that means you would agree to follow your heart. When I meet you, no matter what's going on in your gig, your life, where you're at, we will find a way to reunite. Some will, some won't, some will over time. They talk about levels or there's a different word for it. When they talk about twins, that there's only so many on the earth, or the first wavers and stuff like that. I'm not really shown that. There was a lot of people that were saying there's only 144,000 twins on the earth, and that wouldn't be correct. And I've heard different people and teachers talk about it and disagree on it. And to what I think it is that I've just completely lost my thought. 144,000 is when something reaches, it goes exponentially out to the next number. 144,000 are numbers that are met on the earth all the time. There's things that happen. There's things that happen in planetarily and stuff every 144,000 years. There's all sorts of things that are attached, because 144 has an exponential growth. And so the way that I've seen it and the way they've shown it to me was the first 144,000. If somebody is using a number that specifically, it just means that that's what we need on earth to hit resonance, to hit exponential growth, so that the energy and that unconditional love energy will now go out into exponential growth, because a minimum of 144,000 twins on the earth at this time came to the twin story, acknowledge it, are living it, are making their way through it, are aware of it in some way. There'll be one twin that's for sure is awake, and one might be really, really in resistance to waking up. That will come a lot from men, because men and women leave their families very differently. Men that are breadwinners, it can be very difficult for a man. A man will suffer to the bottom of the pit. He will be drowning in everything to try to keep a family together. And so often what you're really doing is you're killing it's a form of dying, and your soul's dying inside inside. And it's a message that children actually see. When children see people completely give in to something, that they see somebody that's giving in to being completely miserable by staying in a relationship, there's an aspect of teaching that child that it's okay to stay in a really unhappy, unloving, potentially harmful, potentially, controlling, manipulating relationship, because a lot of people are in those relationships, and it's like you're teaching them that, you know what, you just settle in life to do this. And then kids actually think that's what you do. And then the opposite side of that is the fact that you really want the most for them and the best for them, but you would never want them. And I ask people, I say, if you really want to ask yourself a tough question, ask yourself if you want your child to stay in the relationship you're staying in. And if your answer right out of the gate and it comes up rearing like a wild horse and it's like, no, I would never want my daughter to stay in a relationship like this, that tells you so much. I would never want my daughter to be in a relationship like this. I would never want my daughter to feel this unloved, this lonely, this distant, this separate. Lots of people go into relationships and then get one-sided in someone's family. And that takes the other person out of their family. If you live with someone that's really controlling, there's a very high likelihood they'll try to keep you inside one family, and it won't be yours. And they might not even be theirs. It might be nobody, or it'll be theirs. That's way up with narcissism. If somebody has to do that, if that's how somebody has to play their life out and have that type of control over people and try to exercise that type of control over people, those are relationships that a person needs to really evaluate what they're in them, like what is it serving to be in that relationship, especially if you're setting an example for your children. Kids are so smart. They know everything, basically, that's going on. It's really quite, there's a word I would like to use. Now, I'm not talking about twin flames. I'm just speaking my honest, I guess maybe it would be opinion. But I've talked to enough of them over the years. I've been that child. I've seen it, and through the level, I've seen it through large families, because back in the day, we all had large families. And so that when that family's in pain, if you think your children don't know you're unhappy, they might think you're okay. But there is no way, if your children know you and love you, they don't see your sadness. They don't see your emptiness. They see it. and they'll talk to other people about it. And what tears them up is as soon as you try to tear them apart and make them, end up in one side of a family when they have two parents on the earth and two external families as a result of that. People that immediately get divorced and start saying you can't see your other grandparents. Like, I'm telling you, I have really big issues with that. And people can say, you don't know the inside story. And unless there's flat out abuse, it doesn't matter to me. Your children are what you put in front of the entire story. You're separating in some way to bring something better to yourself and your children. If women, I will very much be upfront. I believe women can really be worse at this, where they just want to like cut ties with everything, and go ahead and do that as the adult, but don't put your children through that. If the child has to start picking, the child will start hurting in a way bigger way than they already are, by the fact that you are actually separating, divorcing, leaving a situation. And one of you, very, very often, one of us will be the one that finally finds the courage to do it, and the other one's not on board. Other people, if you can sit inside your relationship and saying, it's been so long since we loved each other. I'm only 55 years old. I could be here till I'm 85. I actually just kind of want to have some love in my life, and we've done good. We've got some good kids. But I think our relationship needs to either change, or we need to look at maybe that the last half of our lives are meant to be spent with different people, because that's actually very, very inherent of the soul and quite human nature. It's human nature for us to want to expand our love and be different once we've changed. And you've changed once you've had kids and stuff, for sure. Women, I really want women to take responsibility for some of their own behaviors, though, because women can be really nasty on the earth right now, and it doesn't please me when I know it, and it doesn't please me in a lot of ways to see the way that they are behaving. The feminine is behaving in ways right now that, I'm not on board with quite a bit of it. And then there's other ways where it blows my literal mind. It blows my mind, the power in the feminine. But the masculine need to come to the feminine, and we need to have some open arms for them to know that by this time, after the 1,000 years that they had on the earth and the impact and the detriment that it got to, because there's so many systems on the earth that are wrong and out of whack now. Say wrong isn't the word I like to use, but there's so many systems that everything, I really truly believe in my heart, and I've been given this from spirit and channeling, and they've shown it me, the twin relationship is literally here to bring a true version of unconditional love between human beings, because unconditional love can then go change that whole entire story, the family structure. You will heal generational stuff. You'll heal generational stuff when people follow their hearts, and they follow their hearts to love. Love is love, true love that's coming from your soul for another soul, that you live in the agreement of knowing that your souls came here to have an experience of love, and that you may have had your kids when you were younger with somebody. You may have started out with the right person, but humans change too rapidly. And so we have to be very cognizant of, what am I contributing to the relationship? How long is it since I was happy? That's a great question to ask yourself. If you're not going to give yourself a very honest answer, pick a different question and go find the way that you get yourself to the closest honest answer you can, and then ask a different one after that next time. I can just go straight. I got questions that, they just drill people down really quickly. And sometimes I've learned now, especially in the last 2 years, that's a gift I have for people. when somebody gets in front of me, because I see stuff so quickly and fastly and stuff, I can just quickly go into questions, and then boom, you have a solid answer, and then you can go start making different choices. And and then when people need another, say I'm at a point, I need to come and ask another big question. That's what I'm learning is my gift, and that's how I offer to help people now. If somebody they want to ask themselves a deep question and they want help to get the question proper, and then to pay attention to the answers that you're getting, so you can form a belief about something, an opinion or a feeling, so that you feel like you can at least follow, that is going to help immensely. But if you ask questions from the third dimension, and is he for me, and is this my twin, and you don't really have anything, your hearts really aren't meeting, you're not telepathic, you've bought into some story, you heard your friends had it, it's not a journey for the lighthearted, and we shouldn't take it lightheartedly if you're thinking that you might be on one. I had that moment in time where my life changed, and it's never been the same since. And it's had a deep impact on my experience, and having somebody in my life, and knowing that I actually had a moment of finding something that fucking beautiful while I was alive on the earth. I'm not going to feel bad about that. I really truly believe, especially, I believe in past lives. I believe in reincarnation. I believe we meet up with our families at different times. I believe we take different roles with our families. So it all makes sense to me, that we could be in these dynamics of what's going on when we're incarnated, and stuff like that. But if you've incarnated, and you've incarnated with what is the energy of twin soul, the energy that's been given to me, and the experience that's given me for me to learn by, and to be able to even have this conversation with you guys, is there is a literal, you will feel an exact match to you when you're in front of each other. It's like no, what did they do? They just showed me two lighthouses. That's what they just showed me. Like two lighthouses where the light comes around at the exact same moment in time and passes in front of each other in the perfect harmonic match. And do you understand what I'm saying? Maybe somebody can write me after if they're watching this, that they show, it's like literally, it's a lighthouse. And what happens to the twins is when they turn around, or they have that first moment where they face each other and look at each other, it literally will change you. It'll change you in that moment. And if it's really lacking in that experience, it's not to say you haven't met a twin, but I'm telling you, that is a high vibrational act. And what it is you finally stood in front of each other, and your recognition of your soul will be so high. For the most part, there should be some form of bliss that's attached to it. You'll feel like you can't talk. You will be able to drawn to have really deep eye contact. It's like you can't stop yourselves from having eye contact with each other. It's like you start passing back information back and forth immediately. And chances are, if they're an intimate twin, which I believe everyone that I know would be, for most of us in this experience, it doesn't mean to say that's the only way you can come to earth and have the intimacy. But the true twin love, with the full, intimate, unconditional love, that takes love to a higher level when there's intimacy. People that come to earth and siblings or friends or whatever that never have that connection, that will be an aspect that would be missing from a full experience of unconditional love. Unconditional love would including your highest energetic match with the intimacy. And the intimacy will be off the wall for most twins, if they're not really wounded. If they're really wounded, that's not necessarily the case. I feel like I don't have any idea how long this has been going on for. I never did anything like this before. It's not telling me. Oh, 44 minutes. I think that I don't know if I'm supposed to take another card. Oh yeah, there was a clarifying card that came up. I'm glad I saw this, because most people hate this card, or they'll see this card, or they'll be upset that this card came out, because it can, like, all of a sudden make, all this. You can get all these kind of nice cards and then get this card. This card is what this card is. It says, pay attention to the red flags. And as soon as I flipped this card over, it was like, I get stuff nanosecond connected. So what I saw immediately is what they were saying is, we're saying, keep your heart open, give the thought that you could have, even if your twin isn't here, but you can be a vibrational match to really high love. Give it that a chance. Have the heart-to-heart conversation with yourself, and really believe that it's possible that you could find true love on the earth. It's possible that you could experience your twin if you've chosen to incarnate with one. The biggest challenge will be to do what you do about it after the experience happens. But pay attention to the red flags. What they showed me immediately was to pay attention to the red flags is all that stuff that I just talked about. All the stuff that's in the lower energetic, and the control and the pain, and living in unhappiness, staying stuck in some karmic relationship, accepting abuse, struggling with self-worth and self-love. All of these things are also all taking place in front of children. So there's a ripple effect. There's an effect. When children are hurt early in life, they're wounded adults. And, the more wounded adults we have, it perpetuates itself in a way that doesn't bring us to a better place. It doesn't bring us to a higher place for our souls. And our souls, really, most of us really just want to be here and have fun and love people. If we didn't get so caught up in the fact that everything's got so quick, immediate, visible, accessible, real, material, fast, nano information, nano judgment, nano release of information, like stuff like that, and it takes place on the earth, and so much of it is being manipulated, and that's a completely different discussion. But I'm learning that I'm kind of accepting that I'm going to start having it. I have to start having it, because if we don't acknowledge corruption on the earth, corruption it's like a weed that will just keep going, because they're getting away with it, because everybody wants to act like it's not even happening. And it's such a disempowering place to be. I can't go there anymore. We have to start recognizing, there's actually a lot of it on the earth, but my soul is going to choose to do something nice today. My soul is going to consider kindness in this moment. My soul is going to consider being in alignment with other people. My soul is going to be open-minded to other nationalities and races and religions and stuff like that. And if everybody quit using them as a form of separation, we would actually have an amazing group of people on the earth right now. Because there's so many souls, and there's so many souls suffering. And there's so many kids on the earth that are suffering right now. I'm getting really impatient with adult behavior in a lot of ways. That's why adults need to start really taking, responsibility for what they are actually doing in front of their children, and what they do say, and what beliefs they're driving into them, what fears they're driving into them. Kids are just worn right out in some ways right now. Like they're so conscious, and they have that fast speed, everything happening all at the same time impact. And you think 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago. I mean, we didn't even have cars to get from one town to another town. And not that long ago, if you historically think of 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, automobiles haven't been on the earth that long. And now we have things that go through the sky. Like, it's really quite interesting to me. Now I'm just being chatty. And so the red flag is those, watch the red flags. When you start noticing that you're being completely obsessive, that's the red flag. You are separating yourself from that love. You're separating yourself from the high story. You're separating yourself from receiving it. Because if we're not a vessel that's open to receiving love, it will just pass us by, because it's like a closed window in the universe. They'll be sending all sorts of people to us, but if our window's closed and we're not seeing any of it come in, so to speak, and people think the universe isn't providing, and it's like, that's not the case actually in so many ways. And that's something that you look at inside of the accountability part and what laws of the universe you're operating, that's the effect that's happening to you. But a lot of it is just fear of being, judged is huge. And then this isn't the kind of relationship you can talk to a lot of people about. Most people just will tune out on you. They won't understand. They will immediately start judging it, because they may recognize that the person that you're connecting with and that you're talking about, it's the earth, it's people. There's going to be people that are in other relationships. There's going to be people that are literally going to stay together till their kids graduate from school. That one actually kids find even quite funny, because I've had several of them over the years tell me that. Well, the last 2 years of my parents being at home together was absolutely horrible, but they stayed till my grade. This is actually some young girls told me this. 2 or 3 of them shared the story with me, so I want to try to remember properly. But they basically said their parents were really miserable the last couple of years of their school. And they said, but they stayed together till I finished school, yet they made my last couple of years of school way harder because of what went on in the parental relationship in the home. They were like, it would have been way easier to go through grade 10, 11, and 12 if my parents weren't waiting to break up. Like, they were like, it was so obvious, and they were happy when their parents actually split up. I know one young girl said to me, my mom still cried, but was for a different reason then, because she wasn't being heard anymore. When kids share that kind of stuff with you, I can have those conversations with kids because they feel comfortable with me, and for whatever reason, I can relate to most of it. But like with you, just talk to them and say, what happens to you? What's your story? And and kids are like, they will max it to the wall for you to treat them like they're stupid, but they're really, really not. And I have a very strong belief in the saying, and I think this may even be my saying, is there's a very big difference in doing something bad, like behaving badly. You're behaving badly versus you're a bad person. Lots of good people just behave badly once in a while. And then there's people that are not good people on the earth right now, unquestionably. I find it so interesting that light keeps doubling. It's not doubling when I look at it, and then it goes off and does that. Maybe it's some, what do you call them, orbs or something. Maybe it's some orbs that are with us. That's really quite interesting. If I went over there and got that, though, that is Kuan Yin. And Kuan Yin is huge. Kuan Yin, and this relationship is for the heart, and this discussion and this reading is for the heart, and for that recognition of the energy of a twin soul, and all of that. And that is Kuan Yin over there. And Kuan Yin is the goddess of love. And Kuan Yin is somebody that when you want to really align with the energy of love, unconditional love in your heart, intimate love for sure, because Kuan Yin is it is the love goddess. It's the masculine, feminine goddess, but Kuan Yin brings the energy of love. She heals the heart. She is who you could do energetic alignment with. If you want to align with the energy of a goddess of love, then you would call in Kuan Yin. And so it's no surprise to me that she's lit up over there. And I think that I see a note. What does it say? I can't see. Hey, Suzette. I'm wide awake on the full moon, and I've decided to do a live Facebook reading because I've had a message for quite a while, and I'm living in that closet. I haven't really been... I haven't really come out fully out of the closet that I have a small community that I do stuff like this in, and I've never done one live on Facebook where I just talked and channeled. So anyways, I always say, like, what would we do? How would we round this out? The reading part of this, anyways, this is ending, we're going on 54 minutes. There's about 2 or 3 minutes that I went off to do something, and I kind of, the video was live, and I was trying to put it on my other page. So there'll be a blank in it when you watch it. But the pay attention to the red flags is just pay attention to what you're buying into. Pay attention to, is all your stuff worried? Is where do you send all your energy? Do you send your energy into the universe and say, here's some things that I'd like you to help me with, and this is what I'd like my life to look like, and this is how you can, this is what would bring me joy, and this is the kind of love that I want to feel? Or do you actually send it out to the universe in a completely different way? I don't trust men. I don't want to be hurt. There's no such thing as real love. Relationships don't last anymore. Everybody's getting divorced. Nobody can get their shit together. Whatever boat you're driving is just drive you further into the direction that you're perpetuating the story. So if you want that to feel different and you want it to change, you have to change your dialogue for sure. You have to recognize, and that's where you'd say, pay attention. The red flags they want to talk about here isn't about red flags in the other person's behavior. They showed me that immediately when that card got flipped over. It was like, this is a personal message to all of us. It's kind of like, what is your shadow? And then just start acknowledging it, because if you're not acknowledging it, that means it's lurking in the dark, having probably way too much power over you, because what you work at hiding takes effort, and then you have to be inauthentic in some aspects because there's something that we're hiding so deeply. And it'll create a cycle that takes the soul away from the energy of joy versus towards the energy of joy. Those questions or those words that I just used before, if you want to ask yourself something, if you want to give the universe something to work with, I always used to say this saying, and I did this with kids, and my beautiful cousin Melanie Cowan would remember this. When I would play with the kids in the backyard and stuff when they were little, I would get them to, we would make things, and one day we made soup. And I said to them, you guys, let's make this big giant pot of soup while we're out playing in the yard. And the kids were like, Auntie Diane, what will we put in the soup? Like, I'm Auntie Diane, that I'm going to make a pot appear, and they're going to get in my story, and they're going to follow along with me. And I said, well, this pot's this big, and it's, burning underneath a fire and everything. You guys go out in the yard and find us all these wonderful goodies in the yard and come back and put them in the soup. And because of what I taught them and the way I would talk to them, and they'd say, what can I go get, Auntie Diane? Or, I'm going to go out, and they'd run back, and they would run to the pot that was, we were the invisible pot that we were stirring. And if I remember correctly, Melanie was just kind of watching it, but they were running back and they were going, Auntie Diane, I have some kindness here. And I'm like, oh, kindness, throw kindness in the soup. Auntie Diane, I've got cooperation. And they were running around the yard. Auntie Diane, I have love for my brother, Auntie Diane. And I remember the experience, because it still makes me sit up and start to really get excited about that story, because it was so beautiful to watch them go out into the world and bring all these beautiful things back. And then we talked about, what are we going to do with all of our love and kindness and compassion? And I've got forgiveness, and I'm totally it was amazing. And they just went out and brought back beautiful things to the soup. And sometime later in life, and I don't remember specifically at this time, but sometime later in life, I've had more than one of those nieces and nephews say, Auntie Diane, do you remember when we made the soup in the backyard that day? They remember the experience, and they'll talk about it with the same way I just talked about it. They'll just be they'll remember the fun that they had running around the yard, putting all these good things in their soup so we could give the universe some stuff to work with. So now when people say to me, Diane, you've been like this your whole life, I'm starting to get it because I'm talking about stories with children. Anyways, the last two things that they showed me here to flip cards over, and I flipped them over, I flipped one over, was it's like, what does this all mean if we took the time to go into our hearts and recognize the type of relationship we're in, we want to be in, we feel, and we're willing to at least accept the fact that we can love someone without being with someone, but we don't have to apologize for loving them. If you love someone because they're a really cool person to you, and you love them because they've always been kind to you and they just float your boat in some way, you don't have to make that like obvious out in the world, and it doesn't have to become something, and it doesn't have to interfere with something. But I really am a strong believer, and maybe I got through stuff as a kid when things were tough for me, but I really strongly believe that when you are given the gift of having somebody just float your boat like that, I don't think that you might not be able to talk about that experience, but I wouldn't deny it in your own heart. I wouldn't deny it in my heart. I don't. I recognize immediately when somebody's just impacted me very deeply. But nothing will impact you like walking in front of and then coming into union with your twin flame. Some teachers talk that you can have your twin flame not in incarnation with you, and that you can still be in union, and I don't know that experience, and that isn't my experience. So what it says is, in the card that flips over is really cool because it's call in your soulmate. Call it in. Like I just finished saying all that stuff, about what words are you using? What are you saying to the universe? What are you telling it? What are you putting out as your food out? So the universe can bring food into you. And that's exactly it. Just says it. Call them in. Call in what it is you want. Call in the relationship. Call in the clearing. Call in the healing of the family. Call in the separation if people are being hurt. Just do, it's like I'm trying, there's words they're trying to get me to use right now, and maybe I'm just tired and it's 2:00 in the morning, but I can't think of them and I don't want to get them wrong. So I'll ask if they're meant to come up again, they will. So, when we come to the earth, we don't come here and say, I'm just going to end up in all these really tough, bad experiences just to see how strong my soul is. And, I'm going to live with a bunch of people. There's family dynamics have to be healed. And their soul family dynamics. There's incarnation families and there's soul families. And they're very different, and the dynamic will be very different. And soul families, you can role switch. I'm a parent in one lifetime, you're a parent in one lifetime. And so there'll be a dynamic between parents. That's why sometimes I think that the child is the parent, because in another lifetime they were the parent, and they're just upholding the energy better in this lifetime. And the parent is actually in the energy of the child. But if the parent's in the energy of a child, it's not a healthy parent. And some children, I think, incarnate to help people that got in trouble. When you see it, somebody young or a person who's totally derailing off in their life and is totally just, their path is not going in a good direction, and all of a sudden something happens to them and they have a child, and that child actually changes them and heals them. They actually come into a place of love and go to a better place because they're, oh my God, I'm a mother. So because I'm a mother and because the role means so much to them, they can't be an addict anymore. They can't be this anymore. And their lives change, literally change. And they can be on a better path going forward for the whole rest of their life. They'll have peaks and valleys, and then I always tell people, shoot for rolling hills, but that they will have that experience and come to a completely better place. I really believe children, our soul families, will say, oh my God, such and such totally is off the rails, and that wasn't their incarnation that's not what this incarnation was meant to do for them, and they're in a lot of pain. A child will come to earth to help you heal without question. But in that case, that's actually the purpose. They actually may not even have been ready to incarnate otherwise. But they'll come and they'll like, oh my God, that's my sister, and she's going off the rails, and that her inherent motherhood will kick in when she births a child, and that heals. Then that path kind of you end up back on the pathway, so to speak. So that's kind of like, that's all the stuff that they're showing me specifically, I think, to twin flames, and all of this has been ended up about so many other things. But the energy, I don't know if I'm going to explain this properly right now, but I'm going to try. If you look at words that end in ion, a very large amount of negative energy, negative ion energy, is in language. And it's a red flag. It's a watch for. So if you look at what energy am I running negative ion energy? And if you ask them, or is this drama showing up in this negative? Am I with somebody that's in the negative ion energy? And in I'll try to say them, as many of them I can remember right now. So you would have things like manipulation, deception, depression, repression. Oh my God, there's so many more. Sometimes I can get like a whole bunch at one time. But then addiction, obsession, possession, all of those, there's a lot of them. And as soon as you recognize and say, okay, well, what negative ion energy is running right now? And your negative ion energy is, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like, I'm behaving in a way that's really not going to bring me the result I want, but I'm behaving in that way anyways. I'm being obsessive. I'm checking my messages 85 times a day. That's a form of an obsession. That's obsession energy. And it will be distrust and all that's driving it. So you have depression and oppression and suppression and deception and manipulation and repression and all of those things. So that's a fabulous way to identify something. I got given that information a very long time ago. That's why I know a lot of words, if I was to be able to rattle them off sometimes the way I can. But if you go look at them, they're really, I might have learned that in Geotran actually. They're language that tell you to watch your behaviors. Because when you have negative ion running in your story, because there are positive negative ions, but the energy that's running in most of us and running on the earth and all of that right now, it's the negative ion energies. It's the addictions and the obsessions and all of that. And suppression of, there's been so much shit on the earth suppressed, especially since the last couple hundred years and for sure in the last 100 and some years, that because the information can be moved so quickly now, they can't keep everything repressed, and there's enough light workers on the earth to challenge those in the dark that will actually go up against them in full out challenging the banks, challenging the manipulation, challenging the control, challenging the money system, challenging the printing system. Printing money without backing is counterfeit in any other form except the United States corporation dollar. The United States is a corporation. If people actually understood that, maybe it's different since 2013. It's so insidious that again, it's completely different. But if we act like something's not happening on the earth when it is like happening, like if somebody wants to say, well, I don't know. They know right now, you talk about something like child trafficking on the earth. It's unbelievable to me that we can be quiet about it because it's the children that are being hurt. Like I said earlier, adult behavior is adult behavior. But the children are, it's so much is at the expense of children. And the children, I mean, they can only give up their soul so much to this darkness to incarnate here if we're not going to assist them. You know, I mean, that takes a hell of an experience for a soul to come to earth and have that be their experience. I don't give a shit how strong you are. That is stuff. Whether there's somebody that have an argument that's just souls correcting karma, and there's some things like that can be happening, but souls correcting karma would be assholes, some souls. Child trafficking means we have that way over on the lopsided scale, because we're trafficking children on the earth in ways that are they're so insidious. They're so insidious. And I'm trying to figure out what place I have in it and speaking about it, because it's a very, very big problem that can't be acting like it's not. Because I don't give a fucking shit about banks and markets and stuff to the degree that somebody, when you tell me that that's what's happening to children on the earth, mess with my money all you want, but leave the kids out of it. You know, and that's their commodity. It's unbelievable. Now I'm going on and on and on. But it's something that you pick a cause to get your mind off your troubles. Say, what could I talk about that? And then try not to go out in it too angry if you can, but just ask yourself, what's important to me? What's happy to me? It's amazing when you ask that question, say somebody to, what would actually happiness mean to you if you were just to really go inside and think about it? And I'm telling you, the scale is way tipped over to the side right now, where it's like when you actually ask the question to yourself, there are a lot of people that don't know. They actually don't know. They haven't experienced it enough, or they haven't experienced it in a long time. They don't really know it when it show up. So I tell everybody, if you don't have a measuring stick for happiness to show up, you have to start having a measuring stick. You have to start saying, I know happiness because I feel like this when I'm with doing this, when I'm carving my wood, when I'm, forming my clay, when I'm helping children, when I'm petting my cat. Start to recognize happiness, because otherwise there's no measuring stick for it. And the unhappiness feels like it takes up so much space in people's lives. They don't know how to recognize happiness. And it's, if you can't recognize it, it doesn't have a window to show up in. So just start asking, like, I don't know, what does happiness mean to you? And don't judge the answers. Just start to look for it. And if it's petting your cat, pet your cat a lot more often. If it's writing a poem, if it's pulling out your artwork, if it's scrapbooking, if it's something that you know in your life that when you sit down, you can just enter the space of feeling happy. For me, it's dancing, especially if I feel free. Like, that's all. I really honestly think that in some ways, that's, people sometimes only see me out twice a year and I'm dancing, and I just look like I'm just like beaming in happiness because I'm dancing, because everything goes away from me when I dance. So I actually I'm able to leave. I don't give a shit if my back hurts when I'm dancing, because my back hurts when I'm sitting, walking, lying down, getting in and out of a car, going for a walk, moving around in furniture, moving around in my chair all the time. So it doesn't relate when I'm dancing. It doesn't. I might feel tired, and I may actually feel even worse the next day, but I'll be happy for that time. It'll just be like, wow, I'm dancing. And so I've learned to recognize things that I feel really happy about, and one of them would be having conversations with people now in my life that are deeper and more important, and without question speaking to any of my nieces and nephews. That is the plug-in for me. When my nieces and nephews and kids reach out to me, especially, I know a lot of people's children in the sense that I've gotten to know them because I have lots of friends with kids, and recognizing that when a child comes to you and they're the one that they pick to tell something, They picked you to tell them something important. They picked you to finally be honest with about whether it's that parental thing. They pick you to say, Auntie Diane, can I tell you that I kissed my first boy? I don't even know what to tell my mom, or I want to tell you first. Like when a child comes and says, Auntie Diane, I want to tell you something, like, oh. And I always had a rule, and they probably remember it. I would always tell them, I'd say, anything that you ever share with me will always be kept in confidence if you want it to be in confidence, except for one rule. And the rule was that if you're in danger, I don't have a rule. Otherwise, I keep your secrets for your whole life. If I am concerned about your safety and I feel you're in danger, there's no rule. I will act according to me, period. And they're like, we're good with that. We're good with that. And they understood that I would have a boundary for that. And I think that I did a fabulous job at be that source of confidence and stuff for them, that they could come forward. And all kids, and that's the same rule. I have sometimes kids that come to my house and then their parents want to know what they said afterwards. It offends me. I'm like, don't ask me that. Don't ask me that. Ask your child they'll tell you the parts that they want to share with you. They will tell you. And if they don't tell you, you have to trust that if they came here and they shared something, and do they seem happier when they left than when you dropped them off? Do they seem better for the next little while? But don't ask me what we talked about or what was said or etc. If they're not in danger, and if they're making behavior or actions that could lead them towards that, I'll have a very direct conversation with them about that. But that's the reason that they will open up, is because they have to trust that they're in a place that they can share something that's important to them, and that it's not going to backfire them or end up in a diatribe with a parent where they're going to be like, you did what? You said they did what? They took what? They've used how much drugs? It doesn't matter. The conversation is, well, let's talk about why you're using drugs. What are you getting from them? What happens to you? Or if you're here, it's because there's a part of you that wants something to be very different than the experience you're having. And that's something they're very good at recognizing. And if it's fun for them, it can be parental worry. But most kids, when they're at a point where they're in pain, it's not fun for them. They're not doing drugs because they're having fun. They're doing drugs because they're in pain. They're doing drugs because they're hurt in some way. They're wounded in some way. They're in an addiction. And it's expanded into that. It could show up in cutting. It could show up in depression. It could show up in food. It could show up in bullying. It's all sorts of things. But if you want a child to actually be helped, they need to have a place that they could be extremely honest and tell the truth. I'm being very direct here right now, and maybe nobody will ever hear this that's a parent, and I just said that at 1:17:17, so it was important. But I am telling you, don't do that if you bring them to me, because I get upset about that, and I will tell them. I tell everyone straight up, don't ask me that. Don't ask me that. If there's a concern that I actually legitimately feel, I will absolutely tell you. But that, they talked about the way they're feeling at school, or that something's hurt them, or how they feel because they're grandparent, they're willing to tell me that. I don't share that with the parents. And I work with kids, and I don't work with kids. People bring them to me because they know me personally, but maybe I'm supposed to work with them more, because I'll tell you what, it's the most rewarding feeling in the world when one of them runs across a parking lot and hugs you. And tells you that you made a difference in their life. And they're still only 23. And the relationship that they're choosing, and the happiness and the behavior is different. And I'm not in an abusive relationship anymore, Diane. And they found a way to feel way better about themselves. That's a plug-in for my soul. So I think I'm getting tired, and I don't know what time it is, but I did want to do a little drumming tonight still. This is my beautiful new light that I got from a secondhand store in Regina the other day. It hangs. My friend said, "What do you need another light thing for?" Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, but I don't have one that's in a case that hangs and that you could put a candle in and not worry about it, being in an open container or anything." And then it's just so beautiful. Okay, so I'm getting told that there's like any. I stopped talking about the twin flame experience, relationship, teachings, and all that in, I believe, January of 2017. And now it's January or February of 2018. And I actually spoke about it the first time about maybe a week or two ago. I don't remember now. It was recently, though. And one of my clients commented on how much she misses my videos and that how she saw a difference from me. She said, when you started out, I thought, wow, Diane looks really tired or something, she said. And she kind of could tell. She was like, I was kind of surprised you were doing a video. And then she said, but by the end of that, you were so passionate about the discussion. You were totally you were different at the end of it. I said, well, thank you for telling me that. I've seen the wedding card twice. It keeps jumping. It keeps. Oh, there it is again. That's funny. Okay. Free yourself is the card that fell out at the bottom. That's what it is. Free yourself. Let your soul just experience itself in a very free way. Don't get too attached to you. That is interesting. Pay attention to the red flags came up twice. I don't know what they're saying here. Free yourself. Pay attention to the red flags. That's what'll keep you stuck, is the red flags, the behaviors, not asking the right questions, not really looking at your actions and then being responsible for them. A big one is talking in I's instead of you's. You make me this, you do this, you do that. It puts everybody's back up against the wall when you start a sentence with you make me, or you made me, or you did this, instead of I feel disappointed when you don't come home for supper on time. It's a completely different sentence than you make me feel. And it never feels good on the other person. It's disempowering on our behalf. Pay attention to the red flags. I think that's it. Unrequited love. I'm absolutely drawing a blank. This is what happens to me sometimes when my memory. I can't. What does unrequited mean? I can't remember. Oh, I feel like I gotta look it up now. Oh, I just saw I have a message from my brother. I think what it is, if I'm not sure, but I'm going to find out here in a minute. Or it popped right up onto Google. Is yeah. Oh. Okay, so what I got initially out of it is that unrequited love is that one partner is very often in a relationship, two people that are meant to be coming together, there's very often one of them will be single, common, and secondly is the other person will be in a relationship that has no love in it. So one's lonely alone and the other one's lonely in the relationship, but both souls are lonely. And when they're meant to be together, they end up lonely for each other once they meet. But unrequited love or one-sided love is love that is not openly reciprocated or understood as such by the beloved. So that's basically the empty partnership. If somebody's in an empty partnership, if you're in an empty partnership, I will just tell you from a soul standpoint, that is difficult on the soul. It's difficult to give up happiness at your expense and then over a long period of time without people becoming there'll be something that comes from that. One of the partners becomes completely void of emotion. They don't have any for the other partner, and the other partner stays that's completely alone in the relationship, and they're not loved, and they're really ready. They want to be loved. They actually are a loving person. They're ready, and some people are not. Their souls are not here. They're not bringing love to that relationship, and they wouldn't bring it to their next one either, I guess is the way they want it said. So it doesn't matter. That person on the earth is just unhappy, and they're pretty much likely going to stay that way their whole life. And if somebody's in a partnership with them and their soul is hurting because they're not loved, it's a lot to give up, and I don't believe in it. So but that would be a red flag. That would be your red flag if you're the one that's in the relationship. If you are in a relationship that's one-sided, it's no wonder that it feels lopsided. It's no wonder that the energy starts to take over, where you feel unsupported, jaded, pissed off, taken advantage of, disrespected. There's a lot of poor female-male relationships going on the earth right now. And so it takes conscious people to make these changes while they're incarnated. So at the end of all this, though, because that's what I asked for, was like, what is the end result? Like, if this is all comes together for somebody, is it that it says this could be the one. This could be the one. You have to consider the possibility that you meet someone, and that when you feel all those things that I've been talking about all this time, and that when you recognize that, and that lighthouse that they showed me that flips around, and the two lighthouses that are, a distance apart, but they face each other, their lights meet exactly in simultaneous time and space. So the beam hits the beam at the exact same time. That's when somebody will become wide awake from another person on earth. And if that person has your heart, and they come in your heart energy, and you have instant love for them, and you have love at first sight, and all that stuff that happens because the recognition is so high. That's what it's like. It's like you turn towards each other, and the light just beams, and that person's life can literally be changed for the rest of their life, and not necessarily in a positive way. If one person that stays in the relationship and which leaves the other person alone, both those souls could leave the earth lonely, because if someone finds true love in their heart, it can be very hard to try to have it anywhere else. Or that you feel like it's fair to even try to let somebody else in when your heart is in some essence taken, stolen, full, not available. But it's because you truly have an unconditional love for somebody, meaning you love them where they're at, even if you don't like where they're at, and then all the rest of the stuff that goes along with twin flames, which is so much more than that. but you will have that, and the love at first sight will be there, and the energy will be there, the recognition will be there. That's why I tell people that's how, when I got shown this a long time ago, I think if I remember it correctly, but it's like, that's why, I think one of my clients asked me and said, why do you think the impact that happens when you walk in the room, that happens to you, that why is it so strong? And I said, because it has to be different than anything else in your entire life for you to acknowledge that moment as being that powerful, important, memorable, like easy to call up, unforgettable. That's why it happens that way, because it's all of those elements aren't in every moment. They're not in other moments. It'll be a moment that will happen to you in your life, and it'll be like, it can happen over and over again when you found your true love, because every time you see them, you will actually feel that. You can be mad at them and all that, I'm not saying that, but your soul will literally light up when you stand in front of your soulmate, a high soulmate, way more often than not. And you can go through difficult times and stuff like that. But when your souls are meeting that have been meant to come together and they find each other, it's like all of these things, these things meet, time and space meets. Oh, that was just interesting. 6 lights just flashed in front of me. Wow, that's weird. Where'd that come from? But it just happened again. But that's the message, is that's why, that's how the moment has to be that different for it to be that impactful. Because we can throw our heads over our shoulder and think that guy's really good looking, and turn our head away and never ever think about that person again. Never see them again, not have a reason to turn around again, but be really taken by them. Twin flames can't leave each other when they first meet usually. They have to stand really close to each other. They can't stop having eye contact. It's very, very, very powerful. So, wow, it is 3:30 in the morning. I feel like I'm complete for tonight. I knew I was going to stay up anyways, especially when they asked me to do this. I'm like, live on Facebook? Are you serious? Okay. So if anybody ever watches this in the future, because I know on my YouTube channel, I'll move it there. This will definitely be a long one. I'll just put it in the notes why. Ended up being about lots of different things. So God bless. And namaste, beautiful soul. Namaste. Suzette, let me know how long you stayed, and it was beautiful to see your name pop up. Good night, sleep tight, and only let the love bugs bite. Diane.